Welcome back, Axis and Allies players, straight from the nest. It's Wars of the World, Series 3, the Napoleonic Wars. NATO's going to lead us through this introduction and through all of our scenarios. Take it away, NATO, and show us how it's done.
Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest with the second half of the 1814 turn of the Napoleonic Wars. And starting off with England. England made only 2 attacks in northern Spain, pushed the French out of northern Spain, and then it brought down reinforcements from England, landed them in Leon Castile, and drove the French out of there as well. And so, coupled with Portugal's seizure of the southwestern Spain, the only military presence France has left in Spain is Madrid itself. So, and then that was, combat-wise, that was it for England. They bought that at their purchase, and then they reinforced Ontario and Nova Scotia. And that was it for England's turn. Pretty simple, pretty quick. Still getting Lend-Lease from Russia. Spain attacked Atlantic side Mexico and San Francisco, and both were defeated. Not outright, but they wasn't enough to take the territories, as you can see. And Spain loaded up its transport and landed more troops there, but were unable to drive them out of the territory. Russia continues to duke it out with France over Prussia. Still astronomical losses. Losses in the combined losses in the 15s and 20 units lost per turn. As you can see, those stacks are dwindling fast. Fight for southeastern Poland still continuing. So but France can't hold Prussia indefinitely, as the French have not been able to reinforce Prussia at all, whilst Russia continuously can. That because of the Sweden's continued presence in Western Germany, drawn off French reinforcements. Sweden's proximity to Berlin means that France has to divert its forces to contend that instead of reinforcing their units in Poland. Although they might have enough built up now to contain Sweden, and those new units can start heading towards Prussia to reinforce the French army there. Like I said, continued to duke it out over southeastern Poland. Can't get any headway there, but this doesn't necessarily have to go anywhere. This is just a diversionary assault. Military terms, what we call a supporting attack, to keep French reinforcements away from the main attack. Sweden kind of already went over what they did. Just continue to put troops into Western Germany to divert French reinforcements away from the main offensive. Let's see, France attacked Russia and southeastern Poland, but that continues to be a stalemate. Attacked the Swedes in eastern Germany, were once again unable to push the Swedes out. Just played defense in Prussia, and with just play defense in Spain, as they've lost the initiative and capacity for offensive operations. Might consider bringing those forces down from Paris to try to open up another front, but with England being able to land anywhere, pulling forces away from Paris is dangerous, because if Paris falls, that's it. France surrenders, they instantly lose. Scenario is pretty much over. So it has to, with England being able to land anywhere, France has to keep a presence in Paris. So moving troops away from Paris is dangerous. Portugal, finally now on the offensive, made the initial attack into Madrid. Keep those French forces pinned down in Madrid and not able to go anywhere else in the peninsula. America, this being its last turn, made an all-out assault on Ontario and Nova Scotia, but was unable to take either of those territories. So that was it for America's involvement. Next turn you won't see any green pieces on the board anymore. They'll take them off just for room sake, so less clutter on the board. Mexico didn't attack anywhere, just reinforced everything. Reinforced its capital, and then reinforced San Francisco with the militia, and then moved those units that were in the Pacific side of Mexico up to reinforce San Francisco next turn. And that was it for the turn. America and England have signed a peace treaty, so America's done for the scenario, and that'll free up British resources, and England doesn't have to dump resources into Canada anymore, so it'll free up British resources to fight France with. And England's going to concentrate on taking Spain and Madrid and getting some victory points before the scenario ends, because there's only 2 more turns left in the main scenario. After that it'll just be France and Mexico, or Spain and Mexico still fighting. So with that, we'll cut it there, and we'll come back with the next turn, a new year, start of 1815. See you then. Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest with the first half of the 1815 turn of the Napoleonic Wars. And starting with England, England moved into Madrid and then also broke off cavalry and took the eastern half of Spain. And so they moved in, contested Madrid, cut off France's ability to send troops anywhere else. And then England also landed in Bordeaux to screen their forces in Madrid against any French reinforcements or counterattack from either France or anywhere else. So that's what that landing on Bordeaux was for, to screen the main British army. And that was it for England. Bought that, 2 cavalry, 2 cannon, and infantry, and bought another frigate. Spain attacked Atlantic Mexico and were unable to push the Mexican rebels off. And again in San Francisco with the same result, so no change in either of those fronts. Spain moved its transports back to pick up more troops, and just moved everything else up north to Mexico. Russia attacked Prussia again, and it was a total disaster. They only managed to inflict maybe 5 or so losses on the French, but it lost well over 11 of their own. So Russia is going to have to suspend offensive operations in Prussia for now, but it really doesn't matter because at the conclusion of this turn there's only one turn left in the larger war, in the Napoleonic side of the wars. They were successful in southeastern Poland, drove the French out, and then just bought cavalry and cannon and infantry and moved it, kept funneling its reinforcements into the fronts. Sweden landed more reinforcements in West Germany to keep all those units tied up. France came out of... I put those guys in the wrong spot. Okay, those guys right there are supposed to be in Paris, so I'll move those after I'm done talking. But anyways, France came out of Paris, attacked the British army in Bordeaux to lock it in place so it couldn't, swing north and take Normandy and Picardia, or south of Marseille, or go directly to Paris and invest Paris. It would be bad news all around if Napoleon's capital was contested. So they came out to lock down the British blocking force to make sure it can't go anywhere. They counterattacked the Swedes in West Germany, unable to drive them out, and then they counterattacked the Russians in southeastern Poland, and that was a draw. I think 1 casualty on both sides. And that was it. Reinforced Berlin. Oh, actually, one more thing. The French have built up enough of a sufficient force in Western Germany that the French can now start sending reinforcements to Prussia. But once again, there's only one turn left, so it's too little, too late. Eastern Europe is more or less decided at this point. It probably looks like it's not going to change. Where it's at right now is probably where it's going to end. So that means all the focus is on what happens in Spain and Bordeaux. Let's see. Portugal attacked Madrid, try to thin French numbers as much as possible to help out the British army that's going to be the main offensive unit or army in the campaign, and managed to get 2 hits on the French at 2 of their own, so it was an even draw. And Mexico, the Mexican rebels, they just reinforced Atlantic side Mexico, and then they counterattacked in San Francisco and managed to reduce the Spanish to an infantry and a cannon. And Mexico bought 2 infantry and a militia. This turn put the militia in San Francisco and the 2 infantry at their capital. And I think I'm just going to start calling this territory Mexico City for ease of reference. So put the 2 infantry in Mexico City. And that was the turn. Like I've said a couple times, next turn is the last turn for the Napoleonic War part of this. And so we'll come back with the second half of 1815. And any guesses on who's going to win? We'll see you then. Hello everybody, this is Nato at the nest with the second half of the 1815 turn of the Napoleonic Wars. And this was the last turn for the major campaign, the Napoleonic part. Mexico and Spain are still fighting, but in terms of the large war between Napoleon and the various, and England and its allies, that is now over. Historically, the Battle of Waterloo would have just been fought, but so England attacked Madrid, wasn't able to take it. They did take Gibraltar. They attacked the French in Bordeaux and actually were able to drive them out. And that was it for the British. Spain attacked Mexico City again, unable to drive them out. Same thing with San Francisco attacked there, was unable to drive them out. Russia attacked southeastern Poland, drove the French out again. And that was Russia's only attack. Russia just reinforced Prussia and then moved everything it could west, reinforced the various fronts. Sweden reinforced West Germany. And then France, because this was their last turn, they just attacked everything they could, with the exception of Madrid. Because England and Russia and Sweden had already went, that meant nothing else could attack them in Europe. So they just attacked everywhere they could. So they attacked the British in Bordeaux, unable to drive them off. Attacked the Swedish, almost drove them off, reduced them down to 1 infantry. Attacked the Russians in Prussia and almost drove them out, reduced them to 1 infantry. And then they attacked the Russians in southeastern Poland, and that was a disaster. The Russians completely wiped out the French attacking force. And because Portugal could still attack them, they didn't attack in Madrid. They just stayed put and reinforced. And combat-wise, that was it for France. And no point in doing a non-combat movement because that was it for them. Portugal attacked Madrid, unable to finish the French off, so Madrid stays in French hands. And Mexico didn't attack anywhere, just reinforced it, plopped 2 infantry down in Mexico City, and then a militia in San Francisco. And that was it for the turn, and that was it for the Napoleonic Wars. Now I'm thinking to be able to just end the scenario here and the continued Spanish-Mexican war be optional, because the Mexican Revolution goes on for another 5 years. It doesn't end until 1821 is when it ends. But I'm thinking of making that an optional to continue it out to its conclusion, because that's another 12 turns of just at this point 2 minor powers fighting over 2 territories for the next 12 turns. So I can understand that could be kind of boring. So making it optional to end it, making it optional to continue the Mexican Revolution, or you can just end it here. So I'll play it out to its fullest, but I think what I'll do, instead of doing a video at the end of each turn, 12 more videos of pretty much me just repeating myself over and over again, I'll just play it out, and then I'll do a video at the conclusion of it. So I'll just do the rest of the Mexican Revolution, and then do an overview at the end of it, and then break down the point scale and who won what, because remember there's three separate wars happened in this scenario. They're completely independent from each other, so it's three separate victory conditions for the respectable nations involved. Although, scratch that. I'll do who won the Napoleonic War and who won the 1812 War, and then go over the strategies now that won or lost it, so I don't forget, 12 turns down the road. So, I need to go get the victory objective sheet, and I'll be right back. Okay, so usually I have this counted now, but I was originally planning on doing this at the end of the Mexican Revolution, but changed my mind mid recording, so here we go. So British and their allies got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So England and its allies got 7 points. Napoleon and, well, France, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So England and their allies have won the Napoleonic Wars. So that's good, because remember, when I started this whole mess, this is a keystone scenario, so if the French would have won, that would have been it, or you just stopped. It would be, you want to continue on to another scenario. Granted, if France would have won, I would have done that anyways to showcase the later scenarios, but England and its allies have won Napoleon, and France has been defeated, so we'll continue on to the next scenario without having to, fudge results. So, Russia, I think, was huge in the Allied victory. Their Lend-Lease money kept England and the various allies afloat through the entire game. You notice that when Russia switched over to France's side, that the allies went downhill fast. That's when Austria fell, Berlin fell, Prussia fell, all during when Russia was on France's side. And it was only once Russia switched over to England's side again that it turned things around dramatically, and was able to allow the Allies to recover just in time to squeeze out a victory. It was a 7-5 victory, so fairly close. Granted, I did have to do some tweaks mid-game for balancing issues. I think the other thing that won it for the Allies, as the history books like to call it, was England's ability to keep Portugal in the war. That gave the Allies that extra point, and was able to, with Portugal still in the war and still having an effective army, that allowed the Allies to split the front and Spain into two, and then eventually three different fronts, and then France just didn't have the forces available to cover every single front, and that allowed the British and the Portuguese to eventually break through and gobble up enough territory to squeeze out that victory. Of course, that wouldn't have been possible without Russia demanding and soaking up the vast majority of French forces. 90% of France's military strength was tied up in fighting the Russians in Eastern Europe. Without that drain, England and Portugal wouldn't have stood a chance. In Spain or anywhere for that matter. Also, I think what allowed Russia to keep so many French forces tied down was also Sweden using that interior line to land troops in Western Germany. That sucked a lot of reinforcements away from Russia. And even with that, France was starting to turn it around and starting to defeat the Russians. But without that Swedish distraction, I think France would have defeated the Russian army and then actually been going on the advance for several turns now. Probably would have been marching on Moscow if not taken it, and that might have resulted in a French victory, or still England still might have been able to win, but it would have been a 7-6 victory instead of a 7-5 victory. So so basic strategy was just the Allies' ability to work together and coordinate. England and Portugal, and Russia and Sweden, and being able to work together and coordinate their offensives to spread France thin across multiple fronts allowed them to gain local strategic superiority. Because pretty much the entire time France had the largest army on the board, but the Allies' ability to open up, I think at its height, 9 different fronts, spread France across too many theaters and thinned them out too much, and they couldn't defend everything all at once. So I think Allied coordination and working together to mutually support each other's fronts was crucial to their being able to recover enough to squeeze out a 2-point victory. France, it did well, I think. As you can tell by all the French flags on the board, France didn't lose. France didn't get their butts kicked by any means. For most of the game, France was kicking everyone else's ass. But it's one nation against one nation against 4 at any given time. 6 total. When you have that many enemies, it's hard to win, and historically, without Napoleon's genius, France wouldn't have done nearly as well. It would have lost, first couple of years without Napoleon's genius. That's not reflected in this scenario. There's no generals buffing or debuffing armies or anything. But I might have made some mistakes here and there. Like I might not have responded fast enough in Spain with France. I probably should have pulled reinforcements down from Paris sooner. So that's ultimately what lost it for France, as England was able to gain traction in Spain and take enough victory objectives at the last couple turns. But in Europe, I think France did phenomenally. I don't see what anything different France could have done. If you guys saw anything, please let me know in the comments. Open to constructive criticism. I can't see everything, so the more eyes, the more minds, the merrier. Like I said, this is the first play test, so this is not set in stone by any means. Anybody has any ideas for tweaks, please feel free to let me know, because this is still in the testing phase. This is not set in stone. So the next conflict, the American 1812 War, that ended in a draw. America didn't get any victory points, and England didn't get any victory points. England has its own separate victory objectives for the American 1812 War that are not part of its war with Napoleon. So America's objectives was to take Ontario, Ottawa, and Nova Scotia. America failed to do all three, so it got 0 points. Flip side, England, its objectives were to take, let's see, New York, Chicago, and New Orleans. It also failed to do all the above. So the War of 1812 ended in a draw, so 0-0. So what that does carrying forward is nothing changes. Canada stays British and America stays America. So no territorial changes. Everything just goes back to the way it was at, first of spring 1812. Ironically, exactly what happened historically. So what happens with Europe, with Napoleon defeated, France will give up its Italian conquests, all of its, well, France will give up all of its European conquests. France will shrink back to its, it's what's more or less printed on the map, Paris and the surrounding territories. France will have to give up all that. Austria will come back. Austria will be liberated. Prussia will be liberated. Denmark will become independent again. Next time we see Austria, it'll have grown into the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Russia, it will keep its Finnish conquests. But other than that, Russia borders won't change. England's borders will not change. Spain will get its home country back. Portugal, nothing will change with Portugal. So yeah, not much really changes historically and for this scenario. So 12 years of unbelievable carnage, and it changes absolutely nothing. Pretty much everything goes back to the status quo borders that, for the most part, France loses a bunch of territory, but in terms of England, Spain, Russia, Austria, Prussia, nothing changes for them, despite 12 years of unbelievable carnage. This was the largest conflict that Europe had ever seen, and the death toll is in the millions historically. The scale, considering that this was the early 1800s, the scale of this conflict was just mind-boggling. But it would secure peace in Europe for the next 100 years. Europe wouldn't see another major conflict till World War I, almost 100 years later. So, before I forget, strategies and tactics in the 1812 War. England did a phenomenal job defensively. It was never able to really go on the offensive because American numbers forced England on the defensive early on. But in terms of playing defense, I think England did a phenomenal job, outnumbered almost the entire time, and especially considering 90% of England's effort and soldiers and resources were going to Europe, and England was only spending a fraction on Canada for them to be able to hold off America for 2-ish years. I think was a really good job on England's part. America, not much they could do. They don't get to produce until 1810, and it's a graduated income. So America wasn't even anywhere close to full production until the war actually started. So I had to spend the first turn or two just building forces up before it could attack, and then once it did get it attacked as soon as it could and got the forces built up, but the dice just weren't rolling in America's favor for the most part. So not much America could do. Did have one naval fight, the USS Constitution, and sister frigate went up against 2 British frigates, and Constitution came out on top. Yeah, not much strategy involved with America. Just build up as much as I can and just attack before time runs out. And unfortunately, it couldn't get anything to swing its way. So with that is the Napoleonic Wars. It's a long scenario, a lot of videos. For the people who stuck with it from start to finish, thank you for sticking with us and watching this very complex, very long scenario. And like I said before, please leave comments. I'm more than welcome and open to suggestions. So I'll end it here, and I'll come back with the conclusion of the Mexican Revolution, and we'll see if there will be a Mexico going forward. So thank you for watching. I'll see you then. Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest, and this is 1821, fall of 1821, and the results of the Mexican Revolution. And the result is there will be a Mexico next scenario. Spain has failed to put down the rebellion, and after 11 years of fighting Mexican rebels, Spain has granted Mexico its independence, and finally, after 18 years of almost non-stop fighting across the globe, the wars are finally over. France has been devastated. Austria and Prussia have been devastated. England is bankrupt at this point. America probably has, ironically, probably has gained the most from this conflict. America's kind of made out as bandits. America went from essentially just the 13 colonies along the coast to the entire eastern half of, well, pretty much what you see here in the picture. The only thing America doesn't have at this point is Texas, in regards to modern-day home country. Spain is in chaos, from the annexation and then the rebellion. Spain has lost over half of its territory, so Spain gets screwed once again. But Spain moves its capital back to Madrid and spends the next couple days just trying to pick up the pieces. The next scenario will be the Texas independence. It'll be Texas versus Mexico, now that there will be a Mexico. And that will be a very short scenario. Historically, the war only lasted roughly 6 months, so it'll be broken into 2 turns, and that's it. So it'll be a really quick scenario. It'll be all one video. Assuming Viper can spare the time, we might even just do the whole scenario live. So look forward to that. This monster scenario of 38 turns is finally over. For various nations, probably thank God. I don't think England and France could handle another massive war. It's had 3 back-to-back major wars: 7 Years' War, American Revolution, now the Napoleonic Wars. So England, France, Europe as a whole, historically and in the scenarios, won't have another major conflict for 100 years, and like I said, that's probably a good thing, because I don't think Europe could survive another major war. It just went through 3 back-to-back ones. So next scenario, much smaller scale, very limited conflict, and it'll still matter, because if Texas doesn't gain its independence, then America doesn't go to war with Mexico, and if America doesn't go to war with Mexico, America is a lot smaller. America won't have those 4 territories, so Texas independence will matter, whether it happens or not. So we'll see you at the next scenario, Texas independence, and like I said, assuming Viper has the time from her busy schedule, we can do that live. So looking forward to seeing you there, and see you at the next conflict.
Hey, thanks for watching Axis and Allies players. Don't forget to hit a squat on that like button. If you'd like to see more videos just like this, go ahead and click on our subscribe button. You can view all of our other videos on our playlist right here on Viper and Nato, straight from the nest, coming at you from historical board games, Z-Man Games, Parker Brothers, Hasbro, and Wizards of the Coast. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next round.